What if what we call public opinion was just a manufactured narrative that makes it easier to convince people that if their views are different, then there's something wrong with that, or there's something wrong with them?
Spending is a tax. As soon as the government spends money, eventually it's a tax. Sometimes we put a direct tax on the people, sometimes we borrow the money, and sometimes we print the money.
Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth.
The Patrick Riggins Show. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
There we go. Welcome to another hour of Logic and Reason here on the Patrick Riggins Show, the cornerstone show of the Lighthouse Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network. Our ally in this endeavor is the radio station to which you're currently tuned as News Talk 98.7 WOKI. And I'm here each week to enlighten your mind and motivate you to action, to do something, make even a small effort towards helping roll back this Leviathan known as the federal government, a monster that has quite literally broken out of its cage and is running amok in this country. Well, really around the world. It is up to us to put him back in his corral. If we won't do it, then no one else can. We have the power of the vote. We just have to marshal our forces and use it. Starting off the show this week, I wanted to hit on one of the things I talked about last week, which was gay marriage. This week, I have some quick audio from Representative Louis Gohmert speaking in the House about his thoughts on the recent Supreme Court ruling regarding gay marriage. And here's a little bit of what he had to say. Hey, we're working on that audio. It's the storm doing it. Anyway, we have another producer filling in today. But look, I'll tell you what he said. Republican Gohmert was speaking about polygamy, and what he was saying was he was taking this argument of the Supreme Court ruling regarding gay marriage and saying, well, what's going to happen as far as polygamy, and bigamy, we can't outlaw that now that the Supreme Court has ruled as it is. Now, he's on the right track, but what he's doing, he's drawing the wrong conclusions on that. My thoughts are, why would you want to get married and ruin an absolutely fantastic friendship? But really, what he's saying is he believes polygamy and bigamy are wrong. And that's what he said in the statement, and that's fine. But he has no right to impose his beliefs on another adult. That's where I think a lot of people are missing this point. I don't have to agree with what you're doing, but that doesn't mean I have the justification to prohibit it if it isn't infringing on the rights of another. Now, the people arguing these points about polygamy and bigamy, and Representative Gohmert, along with others, have tried to make it, what's next? Are we going to allow, a 40-year-old man to marry a 9-year-old girl? That's an actual scenario I've heard postulated, by the way. Of course, they are completely sidestepping the obvious question, is a 9-year-old an adult? Well, not in our society. We have age of consent laws to protect children. But when they become 18, they don't need any more guidance. We assume they're adults and can make decisions for themselves. Now, if some guy's crazy enough to marry multiple wives and they're all adults and able to make their own decisions, well, who are we to tell them they can't do that? I mean, think about this. What is the difference between someone having 5 wives or just living with 5 women? Sure, their neighbors will still talk about them either way, but we say 6 people living together is okay. But 6 people living together with pieces of paper stating they're married, now that's all of a sudden wrong. As I said on this show last week, the government shouldn't be telling citizens who they can and can't marry. It isn't any of its business. The government has been overreaching and becoming more and more of a pain in our lives. And what I want to ask you is, when are we going to tell it to back off? We have representatives in Washington who want the government regulating their pet peeves, but turn right around and state the government should stay out of our business and other parts of our lives, whatever suits their agenda. The only problem is none of these jokers, or so few of them I can count them on one hand, they don't want to get government out of our lives unless it agrees with their principles. To heck with yours. It doesn't matter what you think. Only what they think is best for you. So, are we ready for another clip? No, can't get that clip up. Well, Senator Gohmert also said he doesn't think it's healthy overall for society to allow people to have polygamy in a society and bigamy. Therefore, he doesn't think you should be allowed to do it. Now, he doesn't have any evidence to support that. If he does, he hasn't come forward with it, and it really doesn't matter anyway. There is plenty of evidence that, well, drinking alcohol is bad for your health. Too much of it anyway. And eating too much, well, that's not really any better. But we don't outlaw it. In some places we're trying, but for now, we aren't at a federal level and most levels of government. I find it hard to believe that whether you have one spouse or 6 or 8 or 10, that freedom and liberty is going to suffer. That's what our society is supposedly based on, not whether you have one wife or 4. We aren't a theocracy making societal decisions based on someone's religious teaching or upbringing. In fact, we are repulsed by the fact that other countries tie their laws so closely and rigidly to their religions that their citizens and other people in that country, they're unfairly punished for doing things that are basically personal lifestyle choices. We have a small number of people in our government who want to tell the rest of us how we should be living, even though they themselves don't live in that same way. It doesn't matter. They think you should be living that way, so that's all that's important. The maddening part of all this is when we catch them behaving as hypocrites and call them out on it, these employees of ours in government act like it's our fault in some way, that they don't owe us an explanation at all. And if we continue to demand one, they'll just outright lie to our faces and say none of it ever happened. What's amazing to me is President Morsi in Egypt, he wasn't doing a tenth of what is going on in our country right now. And they have thousands of people in the streets protesting, demanding the president be removed from office. In fact, if you just look at the news here today, it's talking about how people are dying over this. The supporters of President Morsi fighting the people who want him out of office. These people think it's important enough to get out there and do something about it. While over here in our country, we have a government that is spying on us. It's violating our constitutional rights in just about every way imaginable. Plus, our president is spending, well, he just spent over $100 million just to go for his little tour of Africa and stringing along his entourage. Our government continues to waste money at an alarming rate, and we just sit here watching television, going to baseball games, watching the fireworks as we celebrate Independence Day this last week, when it's really becoming a big farce. Our freedom and liberty are almost totally gone without barely a whimper out of the people. Why not try this? Why not start this week working to make a difference? Don't let your children or your grandchildren ask you later on why you sat by and allowed the country they inherited to go down the tubes. Why not do something about it? Why not start working on a campaign? Talk to your friends, especially the ones you disagree with, because those are the ones we need to reach. The ones that agree with you are, well, they're probably going to vote for freedom and liberty anyway. Try to bring those friends of yours who don't understand to this light of logic and reason so they can help out with our cause. All right, we're up on the first break here on the Patrick Regan Show. Coming up, we have just a lot. We'll talk a little bit about Edward Snowden and, of course, and some of the revelations that are coming to light, latest happenings there. And we got a bunch of other stuff here. I'm not going to run through the list, but trust me, it's a packed show. You don't want to miss it. Here on the Patrick Regan Show. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. And we're back here on the Patrick Regan Show. Danny, the excellent producer, got us up and running now. So I think Jay, our regular producer, is doing some sort of public order, court order, public service or something like that.
Something of the sort.
We can't talk about it. We'll ask him about it when he comes back.
Yeah, that could be your first segment next week.
Yeah. Where was Jay, and was the prison food good? All right. All right, coming up on this first segment, or I guess the second segment, really, of the show, and I hate to keep hitting Edward Snowden here over and over, but what he's doing is just really important. And the story started breaking yesterday that he's been offered asylum in Venezuela and Nicaragua. And Nicolas Maduro, he's the Venezuelan president, he made this statement. In the name of America's dignity, I don't know what he means by that, but I have decided to offer humanitarian asylum to Edward Snowden. And he told a military parade marking Venezuela's Independence Day on Friday. He went on to say, he is a young man who has told the truth in the spirit of rebellion against the United States, spying on the whole world. He said, who is the guilty one? A young man who denounces war plans, or the U.S. government, which launches bombs and arms against terrorist Syrian opposition against the people and legitimate President Bashar al-Assad. He also asked, who is the terrorist? Who is the global delinquent? Now, this is a sad commentary on what we have become as a country. As citizens, we should be outraged that Mr. Snowden can't come back to his home country for exposing the unconstitutional violations of our rights. Who is holding our government to account? Who is making those responsible live in limbo, hoping to find a country in which they can live? This is just another example of the victim being portrayed as the bad guy. You see, Mr. Snowden's the problem, not the United States government secretly spying on its citizens. We even have people who have libertarian principles stating they don't have a problem with the government doing this. Now, I have a clip here from John Stossel, and he was on Fox, and here's what he had to say.
If we have an NSA, I assume they're spying and people are trying to kill us, so I assume some of it's okay, and this data mining, for some reason, just doesn't threaten me that much.
Okay, Mr. Stossel, you're a media person, so there's probably crazy people out there who think you need to be killed. Why don't we put a GPS tracker on you? Put cameras all over your house. Read all your mail. Oh, wait, we're already doing that. If you missed that story, you can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/Patrick Regan Show. But since there might be people out there trying to kill you, Mr. Stossel, let's get you good and surveilled so we can protect you. The only problem is the government can't protect you unless you have a full-time security detail. Now, also on this show, Judge Andrew Napolitano was on there, and here is what he said in response to Mr. Stossel's statement.
The John Stossel I admired when I started out as a lawyer and as a journalist would have stood up for the right to be left alone, the right to have the government's prying eyes away from us. The Constitution stands for that right, and the Constitution says government wants to pry, it has to present specific evidence about the target on whom it wants to pry to a judge, and the judge will issue a search warrant specifically describing, I'm paraphrasing the statute, the amendment, specifically describing the information to be seized or the person to be arrested.
You're running the clock out.
Exactly right. The Constitution doesn't allow this type of spying. Now, the last of that clip was the moderator accusing Judge Napolitano of trying to run the clock out. Funny how that happens just when he's making a very good point. You know, never mind that meddlesome Constitution. You're running the clock out, Judge. Here's another clip from Judge Napolitano.
On my Facebook page, I got 100 things I'm furious at government at. This just doesn't rise to the same level.
But if the government can violate the most profound protections in the Constitution because it doesn't rub you the wrong way.
It's always doing that.
Well, right, then there's no limit to what the government will violate.
But I got to pick my battles.
So John Stossel has to pick his battles, and complaining about government wasting money is a whole lot easier than trying to pick the fight with the government spy machine. If this scandal does anything, it's exposing the people who say they're libertarians but really aren't. They aren't ready for true freedom. They're scared of it. They're scared of being responsible for themselves. Want nothing to do with it. I've talked about it on this show in the past. It's like the movie The Matrix, where one of the characters states that most people aren't ready to see the truth. In fact, they don't want to know the truth. They are perfectly happy to live as a battery supplying power to the real world. If you've not seen that movie, then you probably don't know what I mean. If you haven't, I suggest you sit down and watch it. There are a lot of parallels between that movie and society today. People walking around with blinders on, not wanting to see what is really going on because they might have to fix it. Here's one last clip with Judge Napolitano.
You're right. Libertarians are calling me a traitor and disgusting,
Yeah.
but I just can't get worked up about this one.
Will you concede that there's a violation of the Constitution, whether it rubs you the wrong way, whether you get worked up over it or not?
No, because some libertarians say this is not unconstitutional.
There you go. John Stossel won't even admit that all of this spying is unconstitutional. You probably wouldn't believe that unless you heard him say it. We have a whole lot of people in this country who are willing to allow the government to do whatever it wants to do in the name of safety and security. This is what we're fighting against. This is what Edward Snowden was trying to expose. Heck, we've been spying on everyone all around the world, and they're mad about it. The only reason they have anything to do with us still is because, well, frankly, we're paying them off. We're sending them foreign aid. We're sending them military aid, all kinds of money, so they'll let our government get away with whatever it wants. Now, the countries we can't buy off, we just intimidate them through economic sanctions, or we'll do covert operations to overthrow their government. Or we'll even have outright military actions disguised as the war on terror. If you think about it, you really shouldn't be surprised. The government does the exact same thing inside this country as well. It's secretly spying on us, violating our rights in any number of ways. Not only through spying, but the TSA, the DEA, the ATF, the EPA. To get away with this, they pay a large part of the American population off through direct government aid. And that keeps them bought off, as long as they vote correctly. There isn't really any area that the government is operating in today in which it isn't violating someone's rights in some way. Think about it and you'll see I'm correct. Even something as innocuous as telling someone they can't build on their land because the EPA is determined it might hurt the ecosystem there. Now, the landowner might get his day in court, but it's a wasted effort. The regulations that carry the force of law are on the books, and to many people, that's good enough. Doesn't matter whether the law is constitutional or not. Is there case law backing it? Okay, well, good, fine. If you want to hear that whole exchange between John Stossel and Judge Napolitano, which I suggest you do, it's very enlightening, although we hit most of the high points here today. But you can jump over at our Facebook page and grab that link, or you can just Google John Stossel and Andrew Napolitano, and that'll bring it up. The reason I played those clips isn't necessarily to make you angry and frustrated. It's to illustrate my point that most people aren't ready for true freedom and liberty. So when you're out there talking to your friends and everyone, trying to lead them to this enlightenment, don't get frustrated and give up. Most people don't want to see it. Most of them don't want to know. All they want to do is live their lives under the guise of freedom, not the actual practice of it. From the inside of this country, we're told we're free. But if you get outside this country and look in, you see just how much we really aren't free. And you don't have to travel abroad for this perspective. Just use your mind and think about things, how things used to be before we had this overreaching and intrusive government. Use your logical and reasoning abilities. I know in this culture today, they're probably a little rusty, but get the gears going. If you get them moving, you'll understand. All right, we're on the bottom of the hour break already here on the Patrick Riggins Show. When we come back, we'll have even more to get to here. I'm trying to look over here. We got some stuff on, well, why you should keep fighting this fight, and in case you're getting frustrated with all this. And a couple more things we'll try to get to before we run out of time here in the next 30 minutes. When we return on the Patrick Riggins Show, join us in a couple of minutes. All right, welcome back to the Patrick Riggins Show. Heaven's missing an angel, and he's sitting behind the microphone. It's not this one. Anyway, all right. I've talked about this on my radio show before, but it's been a little while. And in fact, it was when I was on the other radio station, the one that's playing music now. A lot has changed since then, but a lot has stayed the same. And one of the things that really hasn't changed is this very real sense of frustration among the American people, which leads me to the subject of this segment. I get this question a lot when I'm out running around and bump into listeners of the show, and I also receive lots of emails about it as well. And the question I get is, Patrick, should I just give up? Now, look, I know the disappointment. I know the feeling of defeat, even the outright resentment and hostility towards what is happening to our country. One of the things I often read about is people who advocate moving out of the country, moving to a country that is, quote, more individual freedom friendly, unquote. And yes, that country often is more free than our country's becoming. But I'm not a big proponent of that type of thing. You know, I tell these people, look, let's take our country back from these people. I'm too much of a fighter to allow a minority of people, and it is definitely a minority, but I'm not going to allow this small number of people try to ruin this country and everything it was built on. No, I say, forget it. I'm not going to let you run this country into the ground. I'm not going to let you take what is a great country and reduce it to a pile of socialist rubble. This isn't going to be another Soviet Union, a socialist experiment that didn't work out, or another country whose time has passed, a once great country that is now consigned to the ash heap of former civilizations. I'm not going to stand by while a bunch of liberals and nosy busybodies take this once proud and independent population and grind them into the dirt under the bulldozer of oppressive government. It's not going to happen on my watch. And that's what this time is. It's my watch. Really our watch. We are responsible for keeping this government in control. We are responsible for rolling back its intrusiveness. We are the ones in charge of making sure we pass to the next generation a country that has its debt under control, a country that isn't spying on its citizens and everyone else in the world for that matter, a country that keeps its nose out of everyone's business, inside the country as well as out, a country that doesn't send its military around the world to babysit other governments until they can get their houses in order. Sorry, that's not our problem. This is our responsibility now, and we're dropping the ball. We can't be like this administration and blame everything on the prior generations. Yes, the government got out of hand during these past generations' watch, and they didn't do a whole lot to scale it back, but that's all water under the bridge. It's time for us to grab the horns of these problems and correct them. Do the things that need to be done, because these problems aren't going away, no matter how much you wish they would, no matter how much you try to ignore them. We have to fix this government. We have to vote in the people who are going to make the changes needed and then hold them to account. Make sure they do what we elected them to government to do. This is going to have to happen at all levels of government, not just Washington, but also state and local governments as well. We have to put them on notice that changes are coming. And if you think all this is going to happen overnight, well, here's a clip from President Ronald Reagan's inaugural speech. I've played this before, but here's a clip from that, his speech in 1981.
Progress may be slow, measured in inches and feet, not miles, but we will progress.
Now, in case you haven't heard that whole speech and are wondering, progress against what? Here's another quick clip when he talks about it.
It is no coincidence that our present troubles parallel and are proportionate to the intervention and intrusion in our lives that result from unnecessary and excessive growth of government.
You know, that's just such a fantastic speech. While we're on that, here's one more clip real quick I won't play. It's just, the whole speech is good.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. From time to time, we've been tempted to believe that society has become too complex to be managed by self-rule, that government by an elite group is superior to government for, by, and of the people. Well, if no one among us is capable of governing himself, then who among us has the capacity to govern someone else?
Yes, that whole speech is almost right out of the libertarian playbook. I know Ronald Reagan didn't govern like a libertarian, but I think his ideas were libertarian in nature. The people surrounding him didn't buy into that theme either. I did a whole segment on this show on that speech, and it's on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Patrick Riggin Show. Just scroll back to the February 10th show of this year, February 10th, and play the segment entitled Ronald Reagan's Inaugural Address. What you'll hear is even back then, the battle to restrain government was being fought. Unfortunately, the government has been winning and will continue to win if we don't do something about it, which means we have to keep fighting. So, no, I'm not giving up this country to a bunch of idiots and ne'er-do-wells. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve the beauty that is the United States of America. It isn't going to happen, so you might as well give up. There are many more of us than there are of you. If anyone is going to leave this country because they don't like it, it's going to have to be you liberals and you government knows best people. I'm frankly getting sick of reading about people advocating we abandon ship, that we get out while the getting's good. Nope, sorry. If you leave this country because you don't like the direction it's going, then you're a quitter. So good riddance. We don't need you anyway because we can't count on you in a fight. You're going to turn tail and run. Oh, sure, when me and all the other people who are willing to fight for this country, once we get it turned around, these people saying to flee the country will be the first ones to move back and enjoy the changes that we brought about. You know, that's fine. I can live with that. Same thing happened after the Revolutionary War. Not everyone fought to defeat the British. In fact, quite a few people fought against this country or didn't lift a finger to help. But after the war, boy, they sure were glad we won. They were more than eager to participate in this new country, and that's fine. Getting our government free again is the important goal, the mission with which we are tasked. Once we get this government reined in, we'll have tons of people who all of a sudden were behind us all along. They just couldn't say anything at the time for some flimsy reason or another, but we'll all be that much more free, and that's the objective. You see, what we're living with right now is the hangover of the government-centric party this country has been living in for the past 80 years or so. The government can fix everything. Government is a cure-all. What we saw in the 20th century was government becoming the answer for all of our country's problems when it really wasn't. All the government did was amplify the problems they're trying to solve. Just look at our current status, spending through the roof. We've sent our military all over this globe, and we're still out there with over 700 bases all over this earth. We've wasted billions and billions of dollars trying to cure poverty when you can't cure poverty. It's just not going to happen. There are always going to be people who fall through the cracks, either because of their destructive personal habits or some unfortunate event in their lives. The best we can do is lend a helping hand through private charity to help them out. You may ask, why private charity? Well, if you're asking that question, then you need to listen to this show more often. If you want to jumpstart, again, go to the show archives, youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. Go to those archives and start listening to the past shows. You might even want to take notes. Yes, notes, because these shows and this show is crammed full of logical and reasoned solutions to this country's problems. These solutions that are based in individual freedom and liberty. All right, we're up on the last break here on the Patrick Riggins Show already. Flying through this hour. When we come back, we'll see what we can cram into that last segment. It'll probably be short. So stick with us. We'll be back in about a minute or so here on the Patrick Riggins Show. Welcome back to the Patrick Riggins Show here on the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network and News Talk 98.7 WOKI. I was letting that Gloria Gaynor song run just a little bit because I was sitting here thinking about how it's almost like the government. You know, if you put the government into those lyrics, it fits almost perfectly. You know, I thought you were gone and now you're back. You're messing up my life. That's what government really is. It's a ruined relationship. That's what we have right now. A relationship, well, it's really doomed from the start. You have all your friends telling you, hey, you know, government's screwing you over. You need to drop it. And then you've got the typical answers. You don't understand, but government loves me. Government is just having a bad day. Government isn't so bad once you get to know it. And all your friends are telling you, it never works out with the government. It always screws you over. Then it comes back and apologizes, and you just invite it to move right back in like nothing's happened. and then you've got, but government apologized. It said it's going to do better. Besides, I don't want to live without government. I'm not ready for that. I don't want to be alone. I'd rather have a dysfunctional relationship than none at all. And of course, your friends are like screaming at you. Yes, you can. You can make it without government. You don't need it. Get rid of it. Dump it. But for some reason, you can't. You can't bring yourself to let go. But the truth of the matter is, you can. You will survive. Oh, sure, like any breakup, you'll mope around the house for a while, but you'll get over it. Plus, you'll meet someone else. This person's called you. This independent person who can take care of themselves. But to open yourself up to that person, you have to break up with government. And government doesn't want to break up. It's going to tell you, you know, you're worthless, that without it, you're nobody, that no one's going to love you like it will. You see, while we're on this train of thought, government is like that old girlfriend or boyfriend you've been with for a while. It knows what to say to scare you, what makes you mad, what plays on your feelings. It'll pull those strings because it knows you better than you know itself. But don't listen to that crap. No more than you should listen to it from another human being. Sure, you feel like you can't make it without this person, this government in your life, but you can. And you'll be better off for it. Once you break up with government, you'll look back and wonder why you put up with all of its foolishness, why you listen to its lies. The key is, though, once you break up with it, you can't start inviting it back into your life again. Because if you let it back in, it's going to be doubly hard to get rid of it again. But getting on into this quick segment, I mentioned earlier how the people of Egypt were a little mad about our government. I'm probably going to get emails about that last little thing. But But anyway, what I want to get to real quick, State Department Press Officer Patrick Ventrell was asked about people of Egypt being mad at our ambassador to Egypt, Ann Patterson, who had made said a couple of things about she didn't think this was a productive thing for the people to be demonstrating against President Morsi. And this is real quick what Patrick Ventrell from the State Department had to say.
You've seen some of these photos of the ambassador, and we really find it abhorrent and reprehensible that people are sort of personalizing this. And, the ambassador has very much stated U.S. policy. She's one of our finest ambassadors, and we really find it reprehensible that people have personalized it.
So they think it's bad that the people of Egypt took offense that the ambassador was working against their interests. I mean, how dare they be mad at the ambassador for that? This is how out of touch these people are, this mindset in Washington. How can you be mad at me? I was only doing my job. This same mentality keeps people in government quiet when they're violating our rights. Unlike Edward Snowden, who spoke up. These people just sit there quietly. Now, real quickly, here's another clip from that same press conference with Patrick Ventrell.
A lack of understanding on the part of some that we really don't take sides. We've been consistent about that very publicly and privately going back some time, so we find that regrettable.
So, is he just living in outright denial that we don't take sides? Mr. Ventrell, all we do is take sides. We are taking sides this very moment in Syria. Are all you people in government blind or deaf or just really this stupid? Or maybe you think we're all this stupid. That's probably a little closer to the point. I don't know how they can make the statement that we don't take sides with a straight face. What it does is just demonstrates this very psychosis that's infecting Washington. We've seen it over and over throughout these congressional hearings on spying and the IRS. These people just sit there and outright lie to our face without the slightest bit of remorse or concern. They're basically socially psychopathic. And I don't think they want to acknowledge the fact that they're working for us, that they're our employees. We're rolling up here on the end of the Patrick Riggin Show. If you want more information about us, you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Patrick Riggin Show. That's facebook.com/Patrick Riggins, RIGGINS show. That's all together. And you don't have to be a member of Facebook. Just type in that address and you'll go right to it. And be sure and hit that like button as well if you are on Facebook. If you're not, just ignore all the little, hey, you need to sign up for Facebook. You can still read the page. Also, we have our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Patrick Riggin Show. And all of our archive shows are there along with this show later on tonight. And you can email us at patrickrigginshow@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and be sure to join me again next Saturday afternoon at 4, where we'll be fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.
Join us again next week for a solid dose of truth on The Patrick Riggin Show.